Hey, what's up guys? This is Brad with Despite Fitness, and I want to come with an extra video here. This is a little bit off of the normal release cycle, but I think this is an important one. There's a couple of friends of the channel, Arno and Adam, who have been following the channel for a while, and like I said, good friends of the channel. We post a lot on both the IG and the YouTube, and yeah, I've always shown a lot of support. So they both asked me to take a look at some of their training footage and just kind of weigh in on my thoughts. So that's what we're going to do. You're going to see some training footage from Adam and Arno, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. I don't think I necessarily need to freeze frame and kind of dissect line, frame by frame, but I'll just kind of talk about what I see on the backside of each clip. So let's go ahead and get into it. Guys, remember too, if you want me to take looks at some of your training footage or things like that, more than happy to try to turn it into one of these videos to be able to help other people, because if I see something with your form, maybe able to help lots of other people who are maybe making the same mistake or something like that. So always open to that. You guys can hit me on IG, hit me in my email, message me here on YouTube, send me links, whatever. Bottom line is I just want to be able to help. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it and take a look at some of these the training footage for Adam. All right, guys, so that's a little bit of bench footage from Adam. And Adam and everyone else out there, some of the things that I see that, you could potentially work on here for your bench is, first thing I notice is a little bit of like wrist caving, right? So I see that you take that suicide grip. I don't argue with that. I do the same way myself, but it appears as though you have that bar kind of up here in your hand, and so when you're pressing, you can actually see that wrist caving back and kind of moving. And so any unintended movement is going to be a loss of power. So you're losing power at a transfer point when you should be driving straight into the bar, right? So I would try to find a way to maybe fix that. One potential recommendation for you to fix that would be to have it sitting more out here over the bone, right? So that as you're driving, you force through your radius and ulna, your radius and ulna, and basically straight into the bar. Where it sits now, your force is driving through radius and ulna, and then you're getting some of that flexion. But anyway, that wrist is moving and kicking back. So you could try to bring that bar a little bit closer into the palm. Obviously, if you do that, there could potentially be some inherent risk with that bar coming forward and out. So you got to decide if the juice is worth the squeeze. It's just a recommendation that I see that the wrist is moving, and invariably you're losing power there. So consider that. Also, looking at your shoulders, it doesn't appear as though you're really keeping those shoulders in a nice tucked position. In fact, I see you on those extensions, or as you're locking out, those shoulders are completely unseating and coming forward. So ideally what I would have you do is, as you're benching, shoulders are back, touch, and I don't know if I'm getting enough, there we go. Try to change the angle for you guys here. Come back, touch, press, and the shoulders stay back. So you can see I get that full extension with my arms, but the shoulders are back. What I'm seeing you do is, I don't think that you're necessarily getting those shoulders tight to begin with, so tighten those up, and I think that that'll help. But get those shoulders back, pinch those traps, and pinch the scapula back and in. That'll help protect the shoulders, right? Touch, drive. So don't worry about that overemphasized extension at the top of the bench. It's a good way to play hell with your shoulders. So I'd recommend considering that. Again, do with that what you will. And then just kind of looking at this, it's pretty clear that your sticking point or your failure point is going to be at that top end strength, right? Which is quite honestly where most people are going to have their problem in terms of bench press power, where they fail. So, recommendation is to spend some extra time and energy kind of addressing that with your accessory work, all geared toward tricep. You could work on doing some pin presses, so set up a bar at kind of a top end, position, and work on that, keeping those shoulders back and pressing. That could help kind of cue those shoulders back and in, and also have the added benefit of kind of developing that top end strength, the lockout strength. But I see that being a failure point. Now, obviously, anybody taken to the extreme of their strength potential, they're gonna fail somewhere. And I think that the vast majority of lifters on bench are more than likely to fail, on the tricep than anywhere else. But you can make up some ground by, making sure that you spend some extra time and attention on that lockout piece of your bench. You may find that just in putting a little bit extra time and effort toward that, you see the overall bench total go up. So a couple quick recommendations for you, Adam, and for anyone else that might be out there that might have a similar issue. I recommend that you guys film yourselves and kind of watch for your own form breakdowns so you can see something as subtle as that wrist cave, because anytime you're getting that wrist or any unintended movement, you're losing transfer of power. So anyway, on to the next one. Alright guys, that's the kind of the squat portion of Adam's video. He had another squat video that he sent me, but essentially it was kind of more or less the same type of stuff. And so I just wanted to touch on a few things that I saw. Now, Adam, I didn't see a whole lot here that I was terribly displeased with. I feel like those are some fairly proficient squats. You look to have the weight under control, and it doesn't appear to be terribly difficult for you. Also worth mentioning is Adam's coming off of a quad tear, so I think he's 4 or 5 weeks post injury, so he's been kind of working on that. So Adam, good on you for getting after it and turning into spite. That's the motto, man. So what I see is, and again, I think too important to point out is that Adam is getting ready for a competition. So the advice is kind of specifically for competition. So that's kind of the realm that I'm going with this. All right, so what I see is a little bit of the heel movement, right? So, those heels, as you can see them on the ground, are kind of like lifting up and in, right? So the heels are coming up off the ground, lifting up and in. One thing that I may recommend, actually there's 2 different recommendations for this. First is, get yourself a heeled shoe. Something with, like, say, a 3/4 inch heel. That's the heel that I squat in. I've tried squatting with more, and I found that it's fairly uncomfortable. Just feels like too much. So you might want to try a heeled shoe that can try to help you compensate for some of the lack of potentially ankle mobility that might be causing that issue, and causing that heel to lift up. Essentially, anytime that pieces of the foot, especially something as kind of big and important as the heel, starts coming up off the ground, well, that's surface area you're not driving with. So, ideally speaking, you want to try to keep as much of your foot on the floor as possible. Heels, heel, big toe, little toe. Kind of imagine those as big anchor points and kind of screwing into the ground so that none of those points are coming up. Heel shoe might help you compensate for some of that potentially lack of ankle mobility. The other thing that you could do additional to that or separate to it is look up Squat University. I think the guy's name is Dr. Aaron Horschig. He's an incredible dude. I'm subscribed to his channel, and I follow him on IG. He does a lot of really great stuff and puts out a lot of really great information. Specifically, he's got some stuff on how to improve ankle mobility. And so I think that you could apply some of the techniques that he talks about in his videos and apply them to yourself and increase your ankle mobility, and therefore, either stop or mitigate to some degree that heel coming up and in. And then potentially, if you couple that with like a heeled shoe, it could be a really great recipe for kind of fixing that. So consider that. The other real thing that I noticed with your squatting, Adam, is it looks like depth might be a bit of an issue here. Now, it's also fair to say that, you know, you're coming back from an injury. You may not be super comfortable hitting that depth right now, or whatever. So that's also a possibility. You could be kind of guarding a bit. But you know, my philosophy on squatting in depth, especially in competition. So you know, it's good to make sure that you're hitting that depth and not having any issues, and leaving that judge make the decision for you, right? So what I see in your squat is, if you imagine kind of the tips of my fingers here are the knees, and then back here is where, you know, the femur attaches to the hip. What I see is, appears your femurs are staying fairly parallel to one another, right? As you descend into the squat, and then as you rise, right? I don't see any knee cave or anything like that, which is great, but those knees really aren't moving. What I may recommend is that you open up the knees a bit, right? Don't open up your stance necessarily, right? Keep your feet where they are, but open up those knees as you sit. And what that's going to do is kind of open up the hip a little bit and allow you to sit down and kind of get into the hole there. I think that perhaps if you try that with a weight that's, you know, light and very, very manageable, that may be a way for you to start hitting depth easier, and not really have a problem, and not, you know, necessarily get called by a judge. Now, you may have some limitations or something like that where that might not be feasible for you, but it's just something to consider to help you get some depth. So if you're out there as just any other lifter, not necessarily Adam, but anyone else who might be having issue with depth, just consider opening up the knees just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a drastic, very exaggerated movement, just very slightly. Open up the knees. It'll open up the hip and allow you to sit. And you know, you may find getting that depth to be a much easier thing. All right, moving on. All right, guys, that's the last one there. That's Arno, right? And he's hitting a couple of reps on squat. Now, again, I don't see a whole lot here that I'm terribly, terribly displeased with. I don't believe that Arno is a competitive powerlifter or anything like that. So, you know, giving a whole lot of very, you know, powerlifting meet-specific type advice, I don't think is necessarily super pertinent here. You know, I would recommend the wearing a belt, because you know, getting the core to activate and being able to stabilize is an important thing. And I'm still a firm believer that you get, you know, from the studies that I've seen, you get more muscle activation in your core with a belt on, simply because you have that kinesthetic cue. It's something to remind your body to continue to apply force and you know, expand that abdomen, right? Or I'm sorry, to brace that abdomen more appropriately. So big fan of belt, and I see you have it sitting on the ground there too. The feet look pretty good. I don't see a whole lot of movement in the heel, a little bit, but again, that's not too bad. Same kind of advice as before. You know, you may find that squatting with a heeled shoe may be beneficial for you, or at least look into some of the ankle mobility techniques of Dr. Aaron Horschig from Squat University, both on IG and on YouTube. He's got some really, really great stuff, and I think he's just an amazing resource for squat information. So really everyone should probably head over to his channel and check that out, because he's amazing. But aside from that, I don't see a whole lot that I'm terribly displeased with. Again, same kind of bit of advice to Arno here as with Adam. It appears as though the knees are kind of staying in line with everything and staying parallel. So if you are looking to try to get a little bit more range of motion and sink that squat into more depth, you may benefit, you may benefit from kind of opening up those knees just ever so slightly to open up the hips and allow you to sit down into the squat a little bit more comfortably. I'm a firm believer that if you can increase your range of motion and kind of work these muscles through the entire range of motion, you get a better training effect. Up to you to consider whether or not that's comfortable or feasible for you. Yeah, that's it, guys. That's a couple of tips. Adam and Arno, I do want to thank you guys for sharing your videos with me and, you know, kind of allowing me to share the videos with everyone else. I hope that both you, Adam, and Arno got something out of this, but then also anybody else who kind of looks at this, I hope that, you know, I've talked about maybe a few things that give you some food for thought on potentially something that you might be able to try if you happen to kind of have an issue with what, you know, we've talked about here. Yeah, that's it, guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave in the chat box below. Again, I invite anybody to send me videos or hit me up for, you know, kind of form check, things like that. You know, because if I can help you, I can help other people. And yeah, guys, I appreciate you checking it out. Likes, shares, and subscribes definitely help. If you're wondering how to get me videos, you can send links on, you know, hit me up on YouTube. You can send me links in email, or you can send me something on IG as well. And you know, I can look at videos, you know, any one of those ways. Yeah, remember, guys, no matter what it is you think you can't do, train despite, you're either going to find an excuse or you're going to find a way. And I hope that you guys continue to find that way. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.